Hi guys, welcome to Twin Perspective. I'm Joe, and tonight I'm going to be continuing a series of videos entitled The Films That Scared Me. Full spoilers on the film, and the film I'm talking about tonight is, in my opinion, the scariest movie of all time. It will always be the scariest movie of all time for me, because I saw it at such a young age. And the film I'm talking about is universally acknowledged as one of the scariest films of all time. That is William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist. Directed by William Friedkin, released in 1973, when I was but 2 years old. We're talking about 45 years ago. 1973. I saw the film a couple of years after it was released, somewhere between the ages of 4 to 7. I want to say I saw it when I was 4. Probably didn't sit through the whole thing. I saw it a few times afterwards. Every time I would notice that The Exorcist was about to play on TV late night on some channel, pay channel, it would be probably a discussion with whoever's there, my twin brother, possibly daring ourselves. Are we going to put this on when it comes on and actually watch it? And I'm sure we forced ourselves to do that a few times. I know that I've never watched it alone until, probably in my 30s. I actually didn't own a copy of it. I wouldn't have a copy of it in my house. Now it's a weird thing, because when you see a movie at 4 years old, scary movie like this, of course it's going to scare you more than anything else, but this movie's different, and it'll affect people in different ways. If you haven't checked it out, I would go to YouTube and watch the reactions to The Exorcist. There are videos that were filmed when it was at the theater, so the videos start where you see the mass of people in line waiting to see it. All of them know that this is supposed to be a scary movie, and it's almost like they're taking that dare themselves. They're all seem like really excited to see it. And then the next bit of footage is as the movie's playing, people leaving the theater. Some of them wouldn't talk, some of them couldn't talk, some of them were sobbing, some of them were crying, and a lot of them were just flat out fainting. And it's an interesting video to watch, especially when the ones that can talk say what they're saying, because it was quite a sacrilegious, horrible thing, especially if you're a devout Christian, to go through. And I think that was what was most shocking back then in the early 70s when this came out. Probably not a lot of movies like this at that time, especially theatrically released. And anyway, I was raised as a Christian, saw different sides of it. My mom's dad was a Methodist pastor, so her parents were Methodists. My dad's parents were Catholic, and they lived right next door to me, and a church in Montague I would go to sometimes with them. And my father, for most of my childhood, was married to a woman from Mississippi. Her and her family were Baptists, and so when I didn't go to the Catholic church, I would go to the Baptist church until I visited my maternal grandparents in North Louisiana. Then I would go to the Methodist church. But it was instilled in us at an early age, and I didn't question those beliefs for a long time. After I was 18 years old, I kind of changed the way I look at things. But I still wouldn't have the film in my house. Eventually, the 20th or 25th anniversary came out. The release where they added footage, a bunch of footage that wasn't in the original cut, and they added special effects to some of it. That one eventually aired on TV uncut, and I popped a VHS in and recorded it on my trusty VCR. So I had a copy of it after that. I'm sure it's tucked away somewhere. So eventually I got over that fear of not even wanting it in my house. But I don't think I was the only one that felt that way about that film, especially if you're raised Christian. For those of you who haven't seen The Exorcist, the film is 45 years old, so there have been lots of horror movies who tried to emulate it, and none of them ever came close, in my opinion. Of course, special effects nowadays and different visual effects you can do now. You might be a millennial or Generation Z or whatever you want to call yourself now, a young person who would see The Exorcist and think it's completely idiotic and hilarious. And you're just, of course, spoiled to the films of today, but back then that was pretty unprecedented, especially for me at 4 years old when I first saw it. I went from the rescuers and Snow White to Reagan's head spinning around, and that was no laughing matter. That movie is brilliant. It's brilliantly done. There are scares in it that are just nonchalantly present themselves. There's no jumping about it. It's just an awful thing that you see, a terrifying thing you see, and it puts your body in a state of shock. Of course, I'm reflecting from initial viewings. The film stars Ellen Burstyn and Max von Sydow and Jason Miller, and of course Linda Blair as Reagan. And anybody that names their child Reagan, you might as well name them Damien, because it's synonymous with evil. And then we had a Reagan as president for 8 years, and yeah, that didn't turn out too good either. This film, even though I saw it at 4, it still had the same effect on me. The viewings I had, subsequent immediate viewings I had of it, even into my teenage years. I'm sure there were times when The Exorcist was coming on TV and a bunch of us friends were hanging out, and there was probably some convincing, we have to watch this. And I'm sure at some point somebody bailed on it. I'm pretty sure my brother and I tried to watch it with our little stepsister, and yeah, she didn't make it. Stuff like that. I mean, it was just a real thing. People couldn't handle it. And I mean, the film's pretty brutal, I think, even compared to today's standards. But like I said, I'm biased. Nothing's ever going to scare me like that again, because I'll never be 4 again. I'm not sure I've ever completely desynthesized myself from that brilliant makeup and all of the imagery. The scene in the bedroom where she takes the crucifix and stabs herself, and then, the scene when all the furniture's sliding across the room and then her head spins around, and oh my God, I'll never see anything like that again. It'll never affect me like that again. That was just insane. This beautiful little girl, charming little girl, I mean, just as cute as could be with those big cute cheeks and everything, and then all of a sudden she's talking in this deep voice, and then her face gets all dried up and scabbed over, and Then she's shooting out projectile vomit, split pea soup. I've never eaten it. When I think of split pea soup, I think of Reagan's vomit. Just some crazy stuff. You know, she grabbed her mom's head and put it between her legs, and oh my God, it was just, it was just awful. And when you see, if you see it, you know, as a child, a lot of it you don't quite understand. You know, let Jesus fuck you. That was, you know, that the religious implication didn't. You know, none of that hit me. I'm sure I had my eyes covered through most of that the first couple of times I saw it. As I get older, and you know, she played with a Ouija board. She thought she was talking to Captain Howdy or something like that, and then all of a sudden she's possessed by a demon. And that's the superstition, and that's how it goes to this day. And you're not supposed to mess with that stuff. And you know, and then the whole question of Legion, and is it really the devil, and yada yada yada, and all that old world footage. The sound was unlike anything, of course, I'd ever experienced at that point, being that young. But in retrospect, I compare it to other movies in the 70s, and not a lot of films really focus on sound design like that. I mean, I think he had bees in a jar, you know, this crazy sound that would accompany all these wild scenes. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that kind of made you jump when it was just like turning a corner and seeing something crazy. But the one jump scare that got me every time was when the younger priest was listening to Reagan's voice on the tape player and then playing it backwards and trying to decipher what it was saying, and then his telephone rings. Oh my God. And that was a design jump scare because the ring was so loud. But I mean, it got me every time. I mean, you're absorbed in that awful voice, and just listening to it, it's like it gives you the creeps, and you just think it's going to say something that's going to just tear your whole world apart, and then that damn phone rings. It scares the fuck out of you. You know, it's a legitimate jump scare. I mean, the tension was built to a, you know, explosion, and then so, you know, a lot of classic stuff in this. You know, the whole spider walk thing, you know, I don't think that was in the original release. That came out much, much later. So, of course, I'm in my mid-20s when I saw it. And when she crawled down the stairs, I mean, I jumped out of my skin. That was just something that was so unique and awful. Oh, man, there's been so many possession movies over the years that I'm sure everybody has their own, which is scarier to them than this, the original, the classic, the one they all aspire to be and never will. The Exorcist, the scariest movie ever. My brother feels the same way about it. He's not going to be around for the rest of the month, so I'm having to do the rest of these videos before Halloween by myself. I wish he was here to inject a few things. When Reagan would curse, you know, of course it was a different actress, Linda Blair, mouthed some words, but they had Mercedes McCambridge, I think her name is, a woman with a naturally deep voice, and besides that, it sounded like, you know, she took shots of bourbon and ate a dozen charbroiled oysters doused in Tabasco sauce or something. And then it's like, okay, now I want you to scream as loud as you can. And she's like, Saul's mine. You know, it's like Freddy Krueger before Freddy Krueger. Did you see what your cunting daughter did? The imagery. And, you know, the whole background story to how they achieved the effects. You know, of course, no computer effects. They had to strap the poor girl and pull her up and down, and to get that effect. And she hurt her back during filming. And then in order to get the room that cold, they pumped air conditioning into it. They were actually freezing when they were in that room. No fake mist coming out of the mouth, no. There was probably a lot of tension and misery on that set. And I think it brought out the best in the actors, because this was a awfully depressing, morbid, and it was so on the edge the whole time. I mean, most people, I'm sure, if they watched it now, would think it's really slow and uneventful, but I think the tension built really well. You meet the family, and it's almost like you're dropped into their lives, but they're welcoming enough to open up the door and let you come in. And then all of a sudden this girl starts acting weird, and I felt sorry for her. The whole doctor scene, and she's getting tested, and I mean, it comes out to nothing. That stuff's horrible if you're a parent. As I got older and seeing the film, those things weighed heavy on me too. I mean, what do you do when your child just all of a sudden flips out? And so a lot of psychological back and forth in this, and especially if you're Christian, the whole implication of possession. That movie ends where the girl seems like she's fine, but I always felt like once something like that happens, it could happen again. That you've already invited that into you, and that you're open, and that might be something she'd have to fight. Now, all the sequels after that, of course, the original is supposed to be based on a true story. And as I got older, I heard about the true story, and I'm like, it's a boy. I thought, it was a girl, and the whole image in my head of Reagan and being a girl, and that story, and the whole staircase where they filmed and everything else, and come to find out, it's a totally different story altogether. Well, this is inspired by, not a retelling of, and I think there was a made-for-TV movie that came out much, much, much later that was more accurate to the story. That was the inspiration for this, but I don't really remember that movie all that much. Sure didn't have the special effects and the sound that the original had, or William Friedkin's movie. And then The Exorcist 2 was almost a joke. But The Exorcist 3 was a really, really good movie. And that was William Peter Blatty. And that is a really good movie. That is a good movie. That's one to watch. That's one that people don't acknowledge. And if you've never seen The Exorcist Part 3, it is just another really good story. And, one worth telling. But, like I said, the original Exorcist, 1973, the original possession, supernatural, evil, the devil, the original sacrilegious, theatrically released, crazy thing. I don't know what else to say about it. You watch something at 4 years old, that is that morbid. Yeah, what else can compare? Not the Blair Witch fucking Project, that's for sure. Okay, so that's it. That's all I'm going to say about it. I'm sure everybody's seen it. If not, go out and watch it. Try to put yourself in that mind frame of this is a classic. This is an old movie, and it is a classic. And those special effects were so good. Those special effects had the Academy Award, had a special effects award back then, special makeup effects award. It would have definitely won. Great job, Dick Smith. And I know that Linda Blair was nominated. I think she may have won. Ellen Burstyn was nominated too, I think. All in all, a great movie and scary as shit. And if you don't think it's scary, you're probably not that religious, and that's good. That's fine. If you are really religious and you've seen it, then you know what I'm talking about. And I'm sure if that movie came on late at night and you turned all the lights off and sat there alone and tried to watch it, it would give you the heebie-jeebies. So that's my challenge to you. I'll never watch it alone, I don't think. And I'm 47, so screw that. All right, that's been my breakdown of The Exorcist, the scariest film I've ever seen, the number one film that scared me. I'm Joe. This has been Twin Perspective. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos like this. And I will see you in the trees. Bye.